Welcome back. Build your legacy.
Welcome back, guys.
Travis, you doing all right, man?
Can't complain, buddy. How are you?
I'm good. Summer's about over because kids are heading back to school.
Which brings up an interesting debate we have quite often, right? So when should school actually start and when should school get out?
Well, so I'm going to start with the get out.
Which is the most important.
Yeah. I'm going to go with I wish they got out before Memorial Day.
And see, we're lucky we get out before Memorial Day, and it's great. It's the best way to do it.
Yeah, ours is, I guess nobody cares about these EOGs because, like, man, you give them a long weekend and then come back like, all right, now take a test. Like, come on, man.
yeah. It's listening to you talk about one. You live at the coast, and you guys are in school after Memorial Day.
Well, like 2 weeks, a week and a half, man.
I've already been to the beach once by that point and started summer vacation, right? So that just doesn't make sense to me in that sense. I'm a big proponent of start school before Labor Day so you can get out before Memorial Day. But to your point on the testing side, you can tell kids by mid-May, early May, they're done. Right. It's warm. Days are longer. You're in the midst of Little League baseball, all those things. Summer activities are starting to kick off and, people are going to the beach, the pool, the lake, all those things.
Summer has hit.
Summer has hit. Get them tested and get them out of there, man.
Yeah. I'm not a politician, so I don't know what all the rules are in this, but it's like, can we go to school a little bit longer a day? Are there some things that they can maneuver to do to get it where they can condense a school year and still get the same amount of learning? Because I think they can. I think
they've got it so spread out. I feel like but if my wife was here, she could answer all this stuff for us.
Mine too.
But I feel like we're out of school for like a month in, between Christmas and all that. I'm sure it's not a month, but I feel that way.
I feel like it's less and less now. We only have like 2 full weeks at Christmas time.
And, there's so many times that there's these odd work days or off days throughout, to your point. I'm sure they could look at that calendar and find a way to start right there after Labor Day and finish up before Memorial Day and squeeze it all in.
But colleges go mid-August as well, like right now as well. So, but they're done before Christmas on their semesters, and they come back at the semester, and then they're done. They're graduated by Mother's Day weekend at the latest, typically. Yeah. So, we did that in college. So
why can't we do it in elementary school?
Why can't they do it at these lower ages? And both you and I went to public university system, so it's all tied
like the
together.
Framework's kind of there already, right?
I don't know. Let's maybe they'll spur the debate in Raleigh. I don't know.
This is going to be our calling card right here. We're going to be the guys that change the school year calendar.
I'm not going to hold my breath on that.
I know. I'm with you, man. I'm with you.
It's that time. Hey, look. So maybe everybody gets back to work, and they're watching more podcasts and doing more things with us.
Yeah, 100%, man. But now I hope everybody's been, while they're on vacation or they're sitting by the pool, they're throwing that podcast in and listening to it. So they're getting something accomplished throughout this past summer, right?
Yeah, we hope so.
Yeah. It's because we riveting stuff over here.
We talk about, but it is, summer flew by. Always does.
Always does.
Guess what's going to happen next is the year's going to be gone.
I know.
So we're going to wake up and it's going to be Thanksgiving, Christmas, and it's done.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Next round of podcasts we do, you're going to be talking about Leslie already decorating for Christmas.
Well, that started already, Bill. But that's another sore subject. That's going to be another calling card for me. Is let's get rid of house decorations. But we did want to get on here and talk about some work stuff, right? Yeah. Not just talk about our little side quests we have going on, right? But we wanted to talk about, work stuff and in particular highlight things that we see good agents or good agencies do in some way from day one, right? The best
start of the school year. What do they do right now?
Best business practices, best practices to achieve your goals, right? So we kind of wanted to highlight some of those things and in tandem tie in some ways a little bit to what the market wants to see, looking at agency value, asset value, right? What the market's wanting to see so that you're getting prepared to make sure you're maximizing your value as an owner.
Yeah, I agree. So, one of the first things I'll say, since we're talking about school, we talk about college a little bit. Start of the school year, you know what you're doing, right? There's a process, you know where you've got to get to.
Yeah.
I think that's key for a business. If they don't have that from day one and they're just trying to wing it, they're not building any kind of process to help themselves get to where they need to go.
It's why we have the agency foundation program that we utilize for startup agents and existing agencies, right? Is let's build a repeatable process from day one of our partnership. Kind of to think about it, right? Since we've touched on school a little bit and your point of winging it, it's really never a good idea to go through an entire semester, not actually go to class, not take notes, not actually study and read what you're supposed to read, and then just go and sit down and take an exam, right?
Most people can't do that.
No, most people cannot pass any class from memory. Right. So, imagine being in the position of building an agency. It's really difficult to build an agency from memory, right? You need to be able to document, how you're generating business.
You need data,
right? Like how you're quoting it, how you're closing it, all those things.
How much time it takes to do things. Or how much time are you spending here or there?
100%, right? And ultimately that's going to help you create consistency and persistency as an owner, but then be able to duplicate that down the line as you grow, right?
Yeah. I do think it's something, whether you're taking statistics courses or things of that nature, marketing, you got to know what you're doing.
Yes.
Because then you'll never know how you were successful or how you failed. So you don't do it over again.
Yeah.
Or you do it over again if you're succeeding.
And listen, as someone who talks to a lot of agency owners in the marketplace, you would be surprised how many agents I talk to that really can't look back retroactively and know where their growth came from. Like, hey, last year was a great year. Why? I don't know.
And here's the crazy thing is because in today's world, it's so easy, right? With all the AI tools, with the summarization of the voice notes.
Yes.
There's so much that you can document what you're doing in a couple seconds. I mean, it really is not like you got to sit down and bang away on a keyboard in an Excel spreadsheet. If you do that, great. Nothing wrong with that. You're keeping track of it. But if you're just one of those, just talk into the microphone almost, throw it into AI.
And it's going to regurgitate it back to you.
It'll do it all for you.
Yeah.
And then hit the save button and you got it.
You've got it there. We've done episodes recently on cash flow and the 5 layers of compensation and all those things and reinvesting in your business. If you don't have that data of the strengths and weaknesses of your business, it makes it really hard to reinvest.
Yeah.
Because you don't know where you need to invest.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep track of things. I mean, build a repeatable process, like you said, and you got to know if you're failing or succeeding. So that way you can stop doing the failures, do more of the successes, and know you can do it over and over and over.
Well, and it's also so important right now in the market because what we're seeing with the M&A activity is, book size and revenue is not the biggest priority when doing evaluation, right? What these private equity firms or what other potential buyers are looking at is what your process is and the process you've built, and is it scalable? Right. And so those agencies that are achieving the best valuations, not only are they good size agencies and revenue and those things, and they've got good books of business, but they've built a process and they've built a system that a buyer can look at and say, hey, I can take that and make that work and continue this to the next level.
Yeah, for sure.
And so if you're not building that from day one, you're ultimately hurting your long-term value as a business and what your potential is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would say that when we look at the most successful agencies, that's what they're doing from the start is they're building out a repeatable process.
Yeah, absolutely. Doesn't mean you can't pivot. Doesn't mean you can't make changes, but you just got to know what you're doing so you can, continue to.
Right. I mean, that process can evolve as you add different niches and different, avenues within your business for sure. Right. But you've got to have a starting point to be able to do that.
Absolutely.
So I think the next thing kind of within that framework is, I'll kind of skip over one to get to another, but they trust and they empower people within their business or within their centers of influence.
Their atmosphere right here.
Right. Yeah. They trust and empower people. And I think that's important because ultimately, as they're building these systems, the goal is to build a system that isn't reliant upon you to drive it all the time.
True.
Right. And so they are trusting, they empower, and they delegate.
Yeah, well, and you got to also do what you're good at. Right. So if you got to trust people, so that way, if you're not good at accounting, don't do accounting.
Yes.
I mean, you better be good enough to know what you're
looking
doing
at.
And your income statements and balance sheets. But if accounting's not your thing and you're the salesperson, hire out somebody you trust to do your accounting.
Yeah.
If IT is not your thing, hire out that managed service provider to take care of your IT and your computers and everything goes on there. You got to trust the right people.
Yes.
And a lot of it is so you can keep doing the right things.
Yeah. And I think you trust the right people. And if you're doing that from day one, to your point, and maybe it's more vendor oriented, right?
To start with.
When you start making those investments in your staff, now you're empowering those people to become leaders within your organization, and you're giving them a career, not a job, which is something I harp on quite often. Is you're giving them that upward mobility, right? You're giving them control of their future, and ultimately that's empowering them to better serve your organization as a whole, right? And oftentimes, again, we see agents not do this. And ultimately what it leads to is high turnover within agencies, right? And then long term in the business, it becomes so over reliant on that one individual. It hurts the overall value of the business while also stagnating and limiting the potential of the business.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Yeah.
I would say trust.
I think the trust is, it can go multiple ways, but to your point, you can't do everything. So you got to trust the people around you. And that can go employees to outsourcing to whatever it may be.
And to share this, kind of real life scenario, I was talking with one of our members one time, and I was looking at some data on their relationship with us. And I noticed for a while they were kind of stuck at a particular point, from an overall revenue perspective. And then 4 or 5 years ago, you just saw this steady incremental growth in the business. I was talking to him and I was like, what happened? What'd you do? And he said they started trusting people, right? That was his exact comment. Yeah. He was like, for the longest time, I didn't trust anybody. I thought I was the only one. And he's like, I finally let that go and started trusting people and empowered them and has reaped the rewards. And he's doubled his agency size since that happened.
Okay.
Right. So I would say the trust is a huge thing.
Okay.
For sure.
There you go. Well, I think one of the other items that people don't do early enough, and this can go in multiple directions too, is building the right relationships.
Yeah.
Kind of goes into the trust bucket, but it also is taken out of it that you got to build the right relationships on multiple levels.
Yes, I agree with that. And I think that can go for owners, and let's also talk to producers who might not be in the ownership seat right now, or people aspiring to enter the industry as a whole. Building the right ecosystem, the right centers of influence, and building those relationships to be that trusted resource for others, right? I think that within that framework of building the right relationships is a lot of times what I see is agents, they seek relationships for transactions.
Okay.
Right. And they're not necessarily seeking relationships and willing to, I'd say, pay it forward to develop the relationship. Right. And the agents that I see and that I look at that are the most successful, they have relationships that are really more of a partnership, right? It's a two-way street. And, they're not willing to put in the due diligence and the effort to deepen the relationship. They simply want a transaction out of it.
Yeah. And look, and I'm going to flip it and basically just copy your comments.
Yeah.
But say they don't get the right carriers either because they don't work with somebody like us quick enough to identify who are the markets I need and how do I build the relationship with the partner carriers as well. So that way, like you said, they need the center of influence. They need all those relationships, but they also need carrier relationships.
Yes.
And not just a plaque on the wall either. It's okay. Yeah, you got a plaque on the wall. That's great. But you need the relationship to help drive your business quicker.
Yeah. And I think we've done some great episodes on how we develop those carrier relationships and deepen them. Right. And I think that's a great point. just because a particular company might not be a need today per se, right? There's still or should be an effort to develop and strengthen a relationship because, we talked in reference to the cash flow, weathering storms, right? We don't know where the market's going. We don't know. Carriers are going to be hot, cold, all those things. And it's the relationship you have with the company that helps get you through that.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you are simply chasing transactions, you're really not building a long-term viable partner there. You're just building someone that, hey, you're good for me today, but what happens when you're not good for me?
Yeah.
Right. And those carriers know that they understand that, and what they reinvest in their agents or their agency force are the ones that are the true relationships.
So there we go. Build relationships early.
Yeah. Build them early, build them often. Don't stop building them. Right.
And again, I hate to say it, there's sometimes you need to fire relationships too. If they're abusing you and not doing the right things and you can't trust them, then it's okay to fire a relationship.
Yeah. I think it's all about creating the right, as you said, an ecosystem, right?
That's right.
And I think the ultimate goal for anybody in our industry is to be a trusted resource for, clients, carriers, I'd say mortgage brokers, realtors, other business owners, right? Be a trusted resource where you've developed relationships in all these different avenues that you might not necessarily be the one helping them with that certain scenario, but they trust you, kind of going back to our trust conversation. They trust you to be able to point them in the right direction to help, deal with that scenario. Right. And I think that's the ultimate goal in any relationship that you're building.
Yeah, for sure. So, I think one of the things, if we focus in on some of the topics that we've just talked about, I do think whether it's, building the repeatable process,
right,
having the right relationships, trusting people, I would also say you got to know who you are and what you're good at so you can know what prospects you're trying to go after.
Yeah.
Because if you're just opening your door and saying, yeah, come any, come all, is that really what you want?
Don't try to be everything to everybody, right? Now, I know that there's some agents out there that listen to this, and this is one of the things I talk about quite often is I'm not necessarily saying like we turn people away all the time, right? But when it comes to agencies, you want to focus on what you do best, right? You want to build your systems for what you do best.
What you like doing as well.
What you like doing as well, right? Because that's going to help you build that process better. But if you try to be everything to everybody, eventually what I see is agents start chasing transactions.
Yes.
Right? And it's really tough to scale a profitable business when all you're doing is chasing transactions, because inevitably then the focus of that transaction becomes price. And that, from a long-term perspective, hey, I get it. We want to be in the ballpark.
We got to be competitive.
We got to be competitive.
We got to have competitive markets. We have to be competitive as an insurance agency.
Completely agree. But we don't want it to be the focal point. Right.
If you get somebody because you're $1 cheaper, you'll lose them next year because you're $1 more expensive.
Exactly.
And not saying you can be $1,000 more expensive. I mean, there's all sorts of numbers and percentages, but you got to be competitive.
You got to be competitive.
We know that.
If you're not, it kind of goes back to the relationship side of things, and I think this is one thing our industry actually does a pretty good job of, right? I'll give credit. If you're a personal lines focused agency and your neighbor is a commercial lines focused agency, hey, that's a good, just because we're in the same industry doesn't mean we can't work in the same ecosystem together and and share and be reputable resources for the other, right? Don't be afraid to raise your hand and say, hey, I'm not great at that. That's not what my focus is, but I got somebody that is, right? And you're still helping, right? And you're paying it forward in that scenario.
Yeah. Doesn't mean, and look, and you may decide you want to learn that later.
Yeah.
To get into that game. But right now you've got other things doing because you're doing what you do.
Right.
And you're doing a good job of it because you've built out the process. You've built out your centers of influence. You're running like you're supposed to. Mm-hmm. Don't let the wheels come off the track because you start doing something that you weren't supposed to do when you had somebody right there that could help.
Well, and I would I would say that can kind of flip back to the carrier side as well, right?
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of carriers that sometimes come into markets and they're looking for points of distribution at times that, you know, it's not necessarily that they've got the right product in place or that that agency is doing the same things that they align with, right? Don't be afraid to tell a carrier no, right? Either maybe you don't want to make that big of a commitment to them today, or maybe you don't see them, or maybe you don't participate in where their vertical is very heavily right now. Don't be afraid to tell a carrier no, you know, in those scenarios, because that will strengthen that relationship for when you do need them or they do play a bigger part in your agency in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Well, because they'll do what I said earlier. They'll fire relationships that don't work. So what I was saying to an agency is fire relationship doesn't work. Carriers are going to do the same thing.
Carriers are going to do the same thing. And then,
so you don't want to be the one getting fired.
Well, and that's, again, I tell agents all the time, you know, is the last thing you want to do is go pick up a carrier relationship before it's right. Because if you do find yourself in that situation where you're fired, well, when you need them 3 years from now, 4 years from now, makes it a much tougher hill to climb.
Well, again, and it hits on another point. It builds the wrong relationship.
Yeah.
And now, not only did you build the wrong relationship with that carrier that may not like you now, but there's a good chance that an employee at that carrier is now with another carrier. So now you've just hurt yourself
with two relationships,
potentially.
And I think within the relationship building, the trust, the systems, this industry is so small. It's such a small world that, you know, if you're doing these things correctly, as you see people move around within industry, it will help you build your brand within other carrier relationships, with other agencies, with others in the industry in the right way you want it to be built, versus if you're burning bridges, you know, you might only think you've burned a bridge with one, but it could end up being 5 because of this.
Yeah.
Right?
Word gets around pretty quickly.
100%.
Yeah, for sure.
100%. So, you know, I would say, you know, build those processes, right? You know, build the right relationships, be trusting in how you operate. Those things will ultimately lead to building the right business or having success.
Long term.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Do it and do it early.
Do it early. Don't chase transactions, and, you know, go have fun.
That's right.
So
awesome. All right, man. Let's do it. Do it next week.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. We'll see y'all.
See y'all.
Thanks for tuning in. You can catch our Build Your Legacy Insurance Edition podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, or send us over a topic recommendation at podcast@siaofnc.com. If you're interested in learning more about what we do, visit us online at www.siaofnc.com. We hope you enjoyed our newest episode. See you next week.